the one thing that is very important that I've learned just through being with so many people, you can be so highly enlightened and be your own guru, but it does not exempt you from the human experience. And that's what that is a fundamental teaching. That two things. I mean, I say this quite often, particularly when we're starting with someone who has no even concept of understanding of energy per se, is you can view your life or the paths in two different ways. That you are, and I mean this, I'm repeating something that the world has, spiritually minded people have said forever, that you are a human being having a human experience where you may hit a crossroad where you might stop and seek spiritual knowledge, or you are a spiritual being in human form. Now that to me is really the choice. Up until my breakdown, I was the first. My breakdown and my giving of my will and surrendering to thy will brought me to the truth of the opposite side of the coin, where I knew I was a spiritual being in human form. That is where the power lies, because that gives you the choice and the freedom to leave any experience that you're in, good, bad, indifferent, and allow for expression in anything else. That means if you are in abusive situations, that means if you are in whatever discomfort, disease, disconnection, misalignments, circumstance that you might find yourself in, if you know that the root of who you are is a spiritual being, which is perfect, whole, and complete, that is the automatic key to walk out that door that you're in and try a different experience. If you are in a human experience, and what that umbrella looks like is the fact that you are in control. You make the decisions. You hold the power. Life screws up, you're responsible, or better yet, they're responsible, because that opens up the whole bridge of being taking accountability and responsibility into play. But that's a whole, that's now when you're starting to actually get into awakened freedom and the tools and the techniques and all of that kind of stuff. But to finish, what I'm trying to say is, when you are in that situation where you feel you are in so much control and you have power over everything, you are actually your weakest, less strength-filled moment, because you don't. Because if you did, you would find yourself constantly in abundance and happiness and peace and joy, and you wouldn't have any of these other things. And when things don't go good and you can't see the way out, you don't know what to do. Well, that's typically, on a small scale, that's where I was when I surrendered. But sometimes people don't surrender, and they actually keep going in the hamster wheel, right? It keeps going around and around and around and around, and they will try every way outside of themselves to find that balance inside.
And of course they can't, because
they're ignorant to this power source.
They're always looking outside, and the answer is inside.
And what happens, it's like when you surrender, and depending on what degree you surrender to, the energy frequency, or where you're resonating, or how you see things, or your ability to be awakened to the moment will vary depending on how much of yourself, of the lower world, shall we say, you give up for the higher self. Your whole world changes, because from an energetic standpoint, energy attracts energy. So if all of a sudden you're resonating at a higher level of energy frequency, that's what's going to attract. You're going to attract in the same thing. So again, if you don't surrender and you stay in the lower world, like all that dysfunction, that's what you're going to continue to attract. If you don't realize that there is a higher power, or that source alive within that you can go to, faith, whatever, however you want to label it, you'll never get off that. That's the key. Once you tap into that, it's almost like giving it to you give it. You give it away. If I could illustrate, you're giving it away to something higher, and they're going to take care of it for you.